Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Wanda Miller. I'm the Assistant Director at the John Germain Memorial Library in Sag Harbor. I've been conducting a series of local spotlight interviews to capture the experiences of our local community during the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. These interviews are being recorded as historical documents to be used in the archive, and they may also be posted to the library's social media. We're trying to work together to help create community connections so that people don't feel like they're alone in this. And we all are in this together as a community. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm really excited to have Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson with us. She's from the Unitarian Universalist Church. And Kimberly, I'm sorry, my first question is a little redundant to the introduction. It's partly for the archive transcript. What is your name?
My name is Kimberly Quinn Johnson.
Thank you. If you're willing, what year were you born?
I was born in 1973.
How long have you been in Sag Harbor?
So technically, I live in East Hampton and I work in Bridgehampton, but I've been out here almost 5 years, since August of 2015.
Very cool. What kind of work do you do?
And I get to be the minister of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the South Fork in Bridgehampton.
Thank you. How has COVID-19 changed your job and what you do?
So the most obvious change is that we made the decision in mid-March to close our meeting house to all congregating, uh, and so for a congregation, that's a big deal. We actually haven't even had the meeting house for that long. The congregation existed for years before building the building, but for the last decade, it really has become the the center, the core of what we do. And so when we decided to close it, we had to really be thoughtful and creative about how to still do what we do when we don't have access to that building. So we ended up moving a lot of things online. We moved our worship online. A lot of our meetings continued online. The meeting house used to be a place where people just sort of knew where to find us. And so that's a big difference, having people be able to find us. Um, we do a lot more, or I do a lot more phone calling than before. When I had access to the building, people could just drop by, or I would just see people in the course of their being around the building. And now it requires being a lot more intentional about checking in with people and seeing how they're doing, what's happening in their lives. We've had to be a lot more creative about ways for people to connect too. So some of the things that we had already been doing, we just sort of moved online. But it also has meant creating entirely new things that we hadn't been doing. So we've started some sort of social gatherings over Zoom. We have a happy hour every week, and we have just a check-in. We have lots more small group discussions than we were, well, not lots more, but some more small group discussions than we were having in person. We don't have access to our Sunday morning collection plate anymore, and so we have shifted to online giving. People can still give other ways, but that's new for us. Um, what else is different?
Mhm.
So another thing is we have just built this outdoor food pantry in the winter, and we were really excited that it was available to people 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And so you would think that closing the building wouldn't have a lot of effect on the food pantry because you don't need the building. But one of the things that we found is without people sort of in and out all of the time to stock and restock, we've had to be a lot more intentional about how that food pantry is being stocked. So it's been a lot of trying to be creative about what our purpose is and how to fulfill our purpose when we don't have the same tools that we used to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you find you have a lot more organizing to do with the food pantry that's there now?
Um, I think there is, which is not me. It's actually a team of our members. And so before this, it was really there were a couple of people who sort of did the organizing, but mostly what that meant was making sure that it was stocked. And now there's like an actual roster and people assigned to days, so it is a lot more sort of officially organized than it
Wow.
had been before. Before and the purpose sort of had been anybody can just do it, and now it's really more structured um, than we originally imagined it.
Oh, that sounds great. Have you ever experienced anything like this before?
Not really to this extent. I mean, I remember Superstorm Sandy. I was living in New Jersey and working in Manhattan, and there was some disruption. There was disruption for transportation. So it was for a while, you couldn't get back and forth between New Jersey and New York, and even within New York, there were disruptions with the subway, and people weren't working for a while. We were worried about health and exposure, but nothing nearly as sustained as this is, or just as global in its reach. So this is bigger and longer, with a lot more uncertainty than anything else that I have experienced.
Yeah, it's been a lot. How has this changed you personally?
I don't know. So I thought about this. Every once in a while, I will sort of check in on how I'm doing personally. And I think about what folks were saying at the beginning in March. So I would love to be able to say that I have deepened my meditation and my prayer practice, and that I am more connected to the earth, and that I am just slowing down. None of that is true. A lot of all of the things that I struggled with before, I am still struggling with. I am still not moving as slowly as I would like. I am still not as connected to the planet as I would like to be. I don't pray or meditate nearly as much as I think I imagined this opportunity would make possible. I am sort of at my core a homebody and a workaholic. And so this has just been a perfect storm for my homebodiness and my workaholicness to dig into all of my old patterns. Um, I will say though, I'm more in touch with family and friends. I have a reputation among my family and friends to be the one who doesn't pick up the phone, who doesn't call, who you can go days or weeks without hearing from. And so that's not true anymore. I'm just much more in touch and initiating contact and picking up the phone when other people initiate contact with me.
Yeah, that resonates with me. I'm a fellow homebody.
It's so nice. I can
Yeah,
go days without leaving. And I'm supposed to be going days without leaving, so yay.
yeah. What routines are different for you?
Um, well, so I think the major routine is in my day-to-day life, I would just spend a lot of time at the meeting house, at the church building. And so I would get up and I would drive to Bridgehampton, and I'd spend my time in that building. And the building itself is pretty active. There's a lot going on. And so there's a pretty steady flow of people throughout the day. And so while I'm working for really long hours, I'm still seeing lots of people. Um, and there also had been this separation between my home life and my work life. Now I'm doing a lot of the same work, except I'm doing it all in the same space that I'm trying to have a home and personal life. And I'm not seeing that flow of people. Uh, so it's a little monotonous. My sister asked me one day last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. She says, "Does it seem to you like all the days just blend together?" I was like, "Well, I sort of do the same thing every day, and I sit in the same space every day, and but now I have different things." And she says, "No, yeah, that's exactly what I mean." So a lot of the routine is it's sort of the same routine, just in a different place. Um, I am grocery shopping and going to the laundromat a lot less than I did before. I am walking to the ocean instead of going to the Y. So that is it's a difference in my routine. I used to practice yoga with other people, and now I practice by myself, which is just a lot harder for me. Um, Despite the homebodiness, that's one of my practices that I really have depended on other people to keep me accountable. Um, there's also, I'm thinking, a thing about breaks. So before, in my pre-COVID life, I would do lots of sort of sitting by myself in front of the computer or reading, but there were also meetings. And so there would be this sort of natural break of getting up and leaving and traveling and going to meetings. And now there are still lots of meetings, but the meetings are all on Zoom. And so the natural break that you would have, or that I would have, to go to a meeting, I just don't have. And so I can have meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting because I don't schedule in travel time. And so where there would have been just a natural tendency to breaks in my day, um, unless I am very intentional and very forceful and very disciplined about building in breaks, it's just a very long stream of sitting in one place in front of Zoom some days, which is really different.
Yeah, you have to make sure you get up and walk around your room or something like that
Mm-hmm.
once in a while. Yeah.
Do a jumping jack, maybe a burpee.
What do you think things might look like for yourself in the future,
Um,
and or the congregation if that's different too?
mhm. So I think one of the things that we found is there are all sorts of things. Well, not all sorts of things. There are lots of things around technology and connecting across distance that we thought was impossible before. It was really challenging for our group to do things like Google Docs, for example, or Zoom, or we didn't do online donations at all. Uh, and people were really resistant. And I think now we're seeing that some of those things can work and some of the benefits of those things. And so I think even when we are able to be together in person again, some of these things that we've picked up that we thought were going to be too difficult will stay with us. I think Zoom is going to be a part of our lives. I think online giving is going to be a part of our lives. So that will be, and we'll have to figure out how to really balance being in person and taking what's really useful from some of the online things that we've picked up. We've noticed a slight, but a noticeable, a significant increase in our Sunday morning worship, for example. And so there are reasons why people can come online, but they just can't in person. There varies. And so I think we'll have to be thoughtful about when we're in person again, how we can continue to include people who want to be a part of our community, but for whatever reason can't be a part of that Sunday morning in-person gathering. So I just think it's going to be a lot more thinking about how we're using technology to connect, um, how we're also, though, still taking the best of what it means for us to be physically in person, connected together.
That sounds good. Are there things that you think would help with the recovery?
Um, Things that I think would help with the recovery. I think so. Right now, we're moving into reopening. I just read today that we're expecting to be into phase two by tomorrow. Tomorrow. And so I think what will be really helpful, not necessarily for me, but I think for our congregation and probably for our larger community, is if we're really gradual about sort of what it means to be reopened and back in person. I think we're not all going to get there at the same pace. Mm-hmm. And so I worry that once some people are in person, that some of the things that have made it possible for people who can't be in person to connect might fall away. And so I think my concern is that, or what I think will make this better, possible, easier for people, is that we really are able to keep in place some of those supports that have been really important for people, that they don't all disappear once some people don't need them anymore. Does that make sense? I mean, I know that there's still going to be food insecurity. I think there will be food insecurity for a while. I think there was food insecurity before, and it was invisible in a lot of ways. I think it's more intense now, and I think it will be a while before it goes away. I think that we've really been able to witness what a technology gap looks like. I mean, it's been a real godsend for our community to be able to move things online. And still, there are lots of people who don't have access to that because they don't have technology, because they're not comfortable using technology, um, because they don't have enough technology. So yeah, I guess I think what will make it easier, what will make it good, better, is that we are paying attention so that we aren't leaving anybody behind. And some of that's about food and some of that's about resources. But I think underneath all of it is paying attention to each other.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else about the experience that you'd like to share?
Let's see, I jotted notes. So is there anything else about the experience that I'd like to share that I haven't yet? I don't know. It's been very interesting, and we're still in the middle of whatever whatever is happening. I'm hopeful for myself and for other people. Well, I really hope that I know that I am myself not being as reflective as I would like to be. This is back to that prayer and meditation practice that I have imagined that I would pick up that I haven't. So I expect that when we're not in the middle of whatever we are in the middle of right now, that there will be opportunities to sort of sit back and take stock. To sit back and take stock of sort of what this was and how we handled it and how we might think about, I don't know, what this has showed us about our community, for example. But I think I'm thinking about what this is telling us and showing us about our community. I hope that other people are thinking about what this is telling us and showing us about our community. And that when we're not so in the middle of it, that we'll have some times to do some imagining together or some, so like this will be an archive that we'll be able to, I imagine, time capsules. I've done a few time capsules in my life where we put something in and we think we'll go back in 10 years and we never do. but
Mm.
but hopefully this is the kind of resource that will, a year from now or 5 years from now, be really helpful in us doing some analysis about how we are as a community.
Yeah. And I can imagine too that this is pretty much a crisis situation, and you are one of those people that people will seek out and go to when they're having an emergency. So there's probably a bigger demand on your time right now too, from individuals as well.
That's true. I mean, so the anxiety level is so high. And one of the things that's really interesting, definitely about our congregational community, I think this is not unique to us. I think this is probably true of lots of places and lots of people. Um, so the anxiety level is like really high. It's like here, it's like off the screen. And everybody is trying to convince themselves that it's really here, that they're
Right.
not anxious at all. They're just going to plow through, which makes it hard to actually be able to address people's anxiety because there's anxiety. And then there's so much denial about the anxiety because it's so uncomfortable to be anxious. Um, and I'm smiling because it is a funny thing to think about, but it's really not. It's really hard for people. People are really struggling. Um, People are really struggling, and it's hard. Uh, and some people are taking advantage of resources that are available, but not everybody, and not as much as I'd like to see. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, spiritual resources and emotional resources and psychological resources.
that makes sense. Yeah, not everybody's always comfortable to reach out for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Which means part of my job is like reaching in more than I would ordinarily. People may not be able to tell this. I'm actually quite shy. And so so this is really pushing me to get over it and to just I'm not knocking on doors, but I'm just calling people, even though it's very uncomfortable. I have a pep talk for myself so that I can read my pep talk every day to remind myself that it's not about me. It's about connecting to people, because people really need to hear from somebody, and people, lots of people aren't going to reach out, and it is actually my job to. So I have no excuses.
Yeah. It's great that you're doing that. It's really stretching yourself. So even though you say that you're not delving deep the way that you think you are, I think you really are. I have that shyness too, and this is not a natural situation for me to do an interview and broadcast it on YouTube and stuff. So
Hmm.
thank you. Thank you so much. Is there any support that you envision the library providing and helping with?
Sort of. So I love a good community partnership. I think all of the community partnerships are good, so that's a little redundant. Um, I love a community partnership, and so if we're thinking that people aren't, so one of my thoughts is, there are all sorts of ways for people to connect to each other and for people to sort of connect to themselves and explore themselves sort of spiritually, not not to connect to any particular religion or any particular creed, but really to explore themselves spiritually. And so, and because folks have hang-ups about church, um, hang-ups, that's probably not a very flattering term. People have lots of baggage about church and religious institutions and religious organizations. I had lots of baggage. I had a little bit of baggage about church and religious institutions. And so I think there are lots of things that we offer that folks won't come to us for. And one of the things that I think is great about community partnerships, like partnerships with the library, is that it sort of makes those things more accessible. So, for example, we did this great class, I think it was a year ago now, the 5 questions, where we really
Yeah.
just explored these sort of deep and existential questions like what is the meaning of life? Um, what is the meaning of death? And the point is not to proselytize. The point is not to convince anybody that they're Catholic or Lutheran or Unitarian, but really to give people an opportunity to be more reflective. And so being able to offer those kinds of opportunities in a way that people will be able to receive them, I think is great. And I love being able to partner with the library on things like that.
Great. That sounds awesome. I'd like to try that again.
Could I ask a question? Would it be possible for the library to have a Zoom panel of the local affiliation of the different parishes, and having Reverend Johnson and the other ministers or priests, and have a panel discussion through Zoom for the community, and maybe discuss some of the issues going forward that will be needed to be addressed, and having the community, tune in and, offer up questions, or, have a planned questions ahead of time. We have a small parish in Noyak, and I'm not sure who the minister is there at this time. And then there's a new minister at the old Presbyterian Church in Sag Harbor. I know her mom, so she's new in the area, and there's several ministers that we could get together with, priests and different, an ecumenical group is what I'm asking.
Interesting idea.
That the library could maybe put together and have it like on a monthly basis for a short time to keep this going, keep this connection going, that you will reach out to a mass of different people, and issues like you brought up could be addressed at length or a little bit deeper. And I think that would be helpful. I don't know, that's my thought on listening to what you're saying and all the things we've all gone through, in life, and what we're going through at this time, which is, historical. We've got two forces going on. We've got just disruption, but I think I look at it as we're going to have a positive come out of some of this terrible, the death and of Trayvon and his family, and the different people that have lost their lives in the past. This George Floyd's family is going through a lot today. Today's the funeral, and I'm thinking of that today. I know I'll tune into it later, but it's brought us to a different place, and we've got an election coming up. We're still opening up, so I don't want to keep going.
Yeah.
There's a lot we could cover.
It's definitely an interesting idea. It's something that I'd have to kind of research and do a little look into. Thank you for that. Back to Kimberly. Have you found that there are any silver linings for you, or anything that's inspired you during these times?
So I've been inspired by how adaptable people have been. I love my congregation. I love them as a group. and they love them as individuals. Most of them are older than I am. I think we'd all agree that we're in sort of we're for the our major demographic are seniors. And one of the things that people always say about seniors is how resistant to change they are. And that's ageism, right? That's people's ageism. Some of it might be based in truth. I've just been so heartened and so impressed by just how willing this group is, my group is, to adjust and adapt and to take on new things and pick up new skills and to just keep trying until they get it right. And that's not a new experience for me with this group, but gosh, the things they've been asked to pick up have been, it's been a really
Mm.
sharp curve. And I've just been delighted and really heartened by and proud of how well people have done. Um, I think this has really forced us, I expect it's really forced a lot of people to really think about what is our purpose. And when we don't have, what is our purpose? And how can we be creative about fulfilling our purpose when we've got a whole lot of limitations, a whole lot of new things? Um, Not so much how can we just do the same things in a new way, but how can we just really think outside of the box about what we're doing? And I'm excited by the ways that people are doing that. Um,
Mm. Yeah.
Beverly mentioned sort of what's happening in I'm going to say what's happening in the streets. So when we scheduled this, we were thinking about COVID. I was thinking about COVID, but we've seen in the last 2 weeks what feels like for some people a real watershed in how we're thinking and talking about race. So when I started using the term white supremacy out here maybe 3 or 4 years ago, people would shudder and cringe, and it was not a term that people could. It was impossible to have a conversation in a lot of times because folks would really shut down, and it's a term now that people are taking seriously. So I don't know. Uh, I am cautiously optimistic that this is an opportunity for us to make some changes in this community and in on this island, in this country. I think it won't happen by itself. I think it will take sort of a lot of work for people to do that. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I don't remember what the question was, frankly.
Oh, about silver linings or inspiration, but there's a huge other thing that's been layered on top of the COVID-19, and it's very serious. And I think in all of our hearts, we're all thinking very deeply about what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone else has questions at this point. That's it for the questions that I had for Kimberly. These have been serious, momentous times. So thank you very much for joining us today and having this interview.
It has been my pleasure. I've been so looking forward to it from the first time that you mentioned it. I love, so I'm a big city person. Living in a small town feels new for me, and I just one of the things I love about this community and sort of living in a small town and being part of a small community is the library and the role that you play. Um, I love being able to be a part of what you're doing, to be invited into your work, especially to partner. So I'm glad to do this and to participate in this. I'm glad that you're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that it's amazing work that you're doing as well.
Can
To
I
reach
ask a
and connect to
question?
people. Oh, Carolyn, you're trying to speak? I'm sorry.
I think I typed a question. Zoom is really new to me. So
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So Carolyn,
Sorry.
you typed it to me privately, and I'm
private.
not a good multitasker, so
I'm not
it's
a
challenging to talk and read and type at the same time. But can I read your
can't
question
do it
out
at
loud?
all. But I'm finding after being locked down and social isolating, which is a whole headset to get around, it's almost as hard to start coming out a bit. You know, I mean, not are there people in your shop? I saw your daughter yesterday. I mean, that's a huge shift. It's a huge shift. And I get my phases mixed up, but I do think that churches are opening a phase two. So I think that's a huge responsibility and conversation. I know the building and I know those movable chairs and you could social distance, but it's more than just a measuring tape and 6 feet. There are a lot of aspects to deciding to congregate and when and how. Has that been part of your conversation already?
It is. So we absolutely 1000% expect that we will reopen at some point, resume in-person gatherings. And we are putting together a team right now that represents lots of different parts of our congregational community to examine what that can look like. Some of our concern is for our congregation and sort of how we are together, how we can do that in a way that balances our need to physically be together and share space and also to keep each other safe. But our building also is used by lots of other groups in the
Oh, that's
community.
nice.
And so we also want people who use our building to be able to have access to it, also in a way that is safe. Um, so yes, yeah, the short answer for all of that is yes, absolutely. We will be together in person again. Um, and I can't tell you when yet.
No,
I want to be
no
really
date.
thoughtful about it.
This thing is difficult. It's not an easy measuring tape and everything is graphs and charts and thank goodness we're getting them from our governor and all that. But there's a very subjective element to this as well, which is pretty tricky, I'm finding.
Mhm. One of the advantages to our space, though, is that it's a lot of open space. So it's a very new building. It's maybe 10 years old, and so we don't, for example, have pews that are anchored into the floor. We can rearrange our space in all kinds of ways, um, and so that will be really helpful for us and for the other folks who are using our building. We've got beautiful outdoor space, also really helpful for us and other people who want to use our building.
Thank you.
That sounds great. Definitely some hope for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other questions? I think it looks like we're all good then. So we might say goodbye for now. Thank you so much, Kimberly. I really appreciate it. And thank you everybody else for joining us.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much, and thank you all for joining us.